Right, here we are again. We are finishing the whole meal this time. So what I've got going already is my grill is being heated up, which is this here. This is what we call a salamander. So in your ovens at home, you would, and in the H2, you have got a grill on top of your stove. Now what a grill is using one heat. So the element up here is pushing the heat down on top of the food like this, so it is cooking the top of the food. The bottom of the food is not being cooked at all because there's no heat coming up, and the food is stopping the heat from going underneath. Basically the same as if you were sitting in front of a radiated heater and somebody was behind you, you would be getting all of the heat from the heater. The person behind you won't be getting any heat at all. So they'll be the ones complaining to get out of the way of the heater. So that's what a radiating heat does. So a grill is a radiating heat. Comes down onto the food. The other way of grilling is barbecuing, because the barbecue, the heat is underneath, or the flame's underneath, and it hits the bottom part of the food. Same principle, so the bottom is getting cooked, but the top's not, which is why you do need to turn your foods over. It is a very quick cooking method, so you can't use stewing steak, braising steak, chuck steak, okay, rump steak's okay, but be careful with the rump steak because sometimes they're tender and sometimes they're not. Okay, so grilling can only be used for tender cuts of meat, and if you go to the Mad Butchers, you will find that their meat for the barbecue is very thin, and that is so that it becomes very quick cooking. Okay, so it's also very quick burning as well, so you've got to watch that. So that's the grill. So the grill is the heat coming down only by one source, or the heat coming up by one source. Roasting is in the oven, but the heat comes down from the element from the top and also up from the element at the bottom. And some of our ovens are fan force, so it actually pushes that heat around. That means that if it can be pushed around, you can use every rack in your oven and still get relatively the same heat. If you don't have that fan bake or fan roasting session thing, you can only use in the middle of the oven. Okay, so you can only put one thing in at a time. So remember that whenever you're going to buy ovens. So roasting has an element up the top, elements at the bottom, and the whole cavity or inside the oven is the same or similar temperature, whereas grill is only the element from the top or the element from the bottom. So only the top is getting cooked or the bottom is getting cooked. Then we have frying, and frying is using a fried pan, and we're using oil, and oil is the medium heat, and we also have the heat sources on the bottom, which could be electricity or gas. So we're using the fry pan, and we're using the oil, and the oil is there to help cook it very quickly. Okay, so grilling doesn't, the food's not cooked in oil, although we do use a bit of oil to go with it. And then you've got stewing, which is like boiling, like a boiler, you know, on top of the stove. Casserole is in the stove. And then you've got braising, which is frying up quickly and then putting it into the oven as per casserole. Okay, and then you cook in a bit of liquid, not a whole lot. Okay, so at the moment we have got my rosti in the oven at a very high temperature because I sort of want the outside of the potato a wee bit more crunchy, and if we don't get it that way, then I can use the grill as well. And the next thing I'm going to be doing is doing the lamb. Now the reason why I'm doing the lamb now before I do all of my other vegetables is because all meat must rest for about 10 minutes before you serve it. And what the reason for that is your meat has protein fibres. Now when it's heated, those protein fibres contract just like you do in the cold or the heat. You know, you contract up. Okay, so all your muscles contract up. And that continues to happen during the heating process. With the quick cooking methods, like grilling, it happens very, 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 very quickly. So it burns quickly, but the poorer you have, you leave your meat in for too long, then it will get really tough because as it's contracting, it's pushing all the liquid out. Liquid's needed to make your meat moist. So it's important to keep it in there. So we heat it quickly, cook it quickly, and then we rest it. And during the resting time, the muscles then relax, like we're all told to do, relax. And then in the meantime, all of the juices left in the muscle come back out into the meat, as long as you haven't overcooked your meat. So for lamb, you can serve lamb medium rare, so it doesn't have to be overcooked, well, cooked fully like a chicken. Chicken gets cooked at 75 degrees Celsius, whereas lamb cooks about 55. Really good if you start learning the temperatures. 55 is medium rare. Okay, it's still cooked, but it's still a bit pink inside. So we've got our lamb that we have taken from our refrigerator. Now the other thing I did was put my rosemary in with the lamb as well, and that allowed the flavour of the rosemary to go through with the Moroccan spice. So rosemary is a spice or a herb. It's not a spice, it's a herb that is Moroccan, so it goes together very nicely. Now I'm not going to chuck that out. I'm actually going to cook my lamb with my rosemary as well. Okay, you will, if you do one without the rosemary and one with the rosemary, you will notice the difference. Okay, so I've got my salamander on, which is the grill. Remember, it's the name for the grill. And I've also prepped up my tray. Now remember that this is very intense heat, so you don't want too much paper there because you actually don't want it to catch fire. Okay, but I use paper on most things. Perhaps you could use tin foil, which probably would have been a better idea. Okay, so here's our meat, and I'm going to place it on my paper. Alright, get rid of your containers, okay, so because it's high risk. The other thing I do with especially lamb, when it hits the heat, the fat contracts, which is the connective tissue around the fat contracts, and then your lamb actually comes up into a ball. To stop that happening, you can actually cut around the fat, just straight down into little pieces, and that means when the curl up happens, it only happens on a small portion rather than the whole lamb. Really good technique to do if you're also doing things like Wiener Schnitzel. Okay, so just cut through the fat and the connective tissue. You'll see the difference. The connective tissue is the more sinewy part underneath the fat. Okay, so place it on there. What I've also done is got some oil in a little container, and I thought I had a brush here. Yes, I do. Also grab the brush, and what you're going to do is just put a little bit of oil on top, not a lot, okay, because it's going to splatter everywhere. And that'll just help the lamb quickly cook. Okay, now remember we've got salt in there, so a lot of your recipes will say season now, but we have got salt in the Moroccan flavours, so in the Moroccan spice, so we're not actually going to add any more. Okay, so I'm going to put that underneath the salamander and hope my paper does not burn. Alright, so in the meantime, okay, remember what you're doing as well. I didn't touch the board with the meat at all, but that doesn't matter. Alright, get that board sanitized down. Okay, I forgot my my rosemary, so I'm going to put that on top of. So I'm going to put that on top of my lamb. Okay. Okay, as soon as I finish, be back in a minute.